So now let's talk about YouTube and YouTubers and how content creators often need sponsors and advertisers to place ads in their videos in order for them to make a living out of their content creation. So think about it like this: a product reviewer who becomes famous or who grows a large following as a result of their honest product reviews will start getting to the situation where now they're being paid or gifted product, and they no longer have an organic opinion. And in some cases, they have contracts saying that they cannot speak negatively about that brand. So once you accept money from somebody, it muddies the waters, really. But even worse, your negative reviews will also affect monetarily every relationship you have with a brand. In fact, if you are not someone with a large following, but one day you want to receive PR, like makeup people that want to receive the free makeup palettes, you can't speak negatively about a brand because brands will see that and think, I'll just sponsor the person that likes my stuff. Honestly. So now there is no longer an incentive to be truthful. And let's say you do get truthful and you have a big following. So what happened recently to TikToker Keith Lee is that when he was honest about his experiences with restaurants in Atlanta that were not letting his family in, and yet were willing to let him in because of his following, he stated that he wasn't attempting to bring hate upon these restaurants, etc. However, because of his following, these restaurants were affected by the words he said. And they have come out saying that, you know what, this Keith Lee person is being a bully. So now he feels that he can't leave a positive review for fear of being disingenuous, and he can't leave a negative review for fear of being a bully. So this is how corporatism has affected content creation as well as content online, period. Usually, if you want content to be seen by people, so not behind a gate, right, not paywalled, you need an advertiser to be able to fund that content. So this is where I want to begin a discussion about deceitful advertising. I'm going to talk about another TikToker named Mikayla Nogueira, and if that name is not familiar to you, I will explain. So she rose to fame because of her personality, because of her TikTok videos putting on makeup and reviewing products. People felt like she was honest and also something a little different, let's say, than other beauty gurus out there. And she got famous during the pandemic, so she started picking up brand deals and like meeting Rihanna and going to, collab with Fenty Beauty and going to events. So she is famous, right? Like she is somebody now in the beauty community that is an influencer. The reason I'm talking about her is because of a L'Oreal ad that she did where it was rather contentious. It was about the L'Oreal Telescopic Lift Mascara. In the video, she puts on a few swipes of the mascara. Wow, it looks amazing. Let me go put on some more. Cuts. And when she comes back, it is very clearly a false lash instead of mascara, right? It's not just mascara anymore. She put on fake eyelashes and came back like, wow, look at that. And in the comments when people were like, are you wearing fake eyelashes? She would respond, nope, that's just the mascara. And honestly, I'm already like on one side of this. There is visual evidence where it is very obvious that it is a false lash. However, she doubled down, and when she decided to make more content after this controversy, her content did not reference this at all. There was no apology, there was no, yes, it was a false lash, or basically it was just a no, it wasn't. And knowing that Mikayla Nogueira is a recent influencer, I am more willing to give her the benefit of the doubt that she did not know this was illegal. Because here's the thing, L'Oreal knew that was illegal and didn't say anything, kept partnering up with Mikayla, did not put out any kind of a statement. And there were other influencers who did receive the product for free or were doing a sponsored post for them, and they didn't use fake eyelashes, and you can see the difference. So I'm wondering why L'Oreal would endorse this behavior. It looks bad on them to use influencers that go against influencer marketing guidelines. And I can show you some right here. Let's go through these things specifically, starting with the liability of advertisers. Right now, I'm looking at the guidelines for truth in advertising that have been updated within the past year and in effect as of July 26th of this year. These guidelines have been put in place long before Mikayla made her ad, and L'Oreal should have known about these updates as well. So let's talk about the liability of advertisers, that would be L'Oreal. And here the guidelines state that advertisers are subject to liability for misleading or unsubstantiated statements made through endorsements. And this is interesting because they specifically say that the Commission is clarifying that the advertiser's liability may extend to deceptive endorsements. For example, an advertiser could be held liable for a television ad where an endorser makes a truthful statement that reflects atypical results of using the product. So I would say that your eyelashes, looking as if you placed fake eyelashes on top of them, which is objectively what happened, is an atypical result of using the product. If you were to use the product alone, you would not achieve what Mikayla did in that video. And this next section here says substantiation for performance claims. An advertiser must possess and rely upon adequate substantiation, including when appropriate, competent and reliable scientific evidence to support claims made through endorsements in the same manner the advertiser would be required to do if it had made the representation directly. And right under that, typicality claims. If an advertiser can't substantiate that an endorser's experience, so Mikayla's experience, is representative of what consumers will generally achieve, the advertisement should clearly and conspicuously disclose the generally expected performance in the depicted circumstances, and that the advertiser must possess and rely on adequate substantiation for the representation in such disclosure. Big words, whatever. Really just the first part was important. And they were saying that if something was enhanced, like I mentioned in commercials or magazines, then they should disclose what circumstances the models that are in the photos, endorsements, etc. were in, i.e. they were in a very bright photo studio with professional makeup on them and big lashes, right? Whatever, things that would look nice on camera. They have to say, this is the scenario in which we shot these photographs. That's why they look the way that they do. An influencer, clearly, if an influencer is attempting to sell you something based on their actual personal experience with an item, then they should disclose the circumstances under which they're using that item. And in her case, Mikayla added false lashes, which is not the illegal part of this. The illegal part was claiming that another product was not used and that you achieved that look with one product alone. And at the end of the typicality claims section, it says that to be effective, a disclosure must alter the net impression of an advertisement so it is not misleading. And yet, if we take a look at how Mikayla disclosed that she was a L'Oreal partner in this video, you can see that it is actually hidden behind where TikTok reveals what the name of the filter she's using is. And that conveniently hides the small text where she wrote L'Oreal partner. That is not clear, that is not conspicuous, and that does not significantly alter the net impression of the ad. So, for example, they've written here that disclosures of generally expected results could themselves be misleading if they only apply in limited circumstances. Therefore, they must be described in the advertisement, those circumstances. So, if Mikayla's long lashes in that video are only possible through false lashes, all she had to do was say, I use this mascara, and then put lashes on top of it. Which a lot of beauty YouTubers do. Super weird to just lie to people who also do makeup. These are things that have been decided because of truth in advertising laws. However, this is where corporatism has muddied the waters for truth in advertising. Many responses to Mikayla's TikTok video, as well as the backlash from that video with the mascara eyelash, lashgate, was that people were taking it too seriously, and it's like, oh, you would lie for a check too, or who cares, girl, let her live her life, or every advertisement is a lie. That is what I want to talk about. There's a reason people think that, and it's because historically, yes, advertising has lied. That's why we have truth in advertising laws, right? And the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, is supposed to be the one regulating this kind of thing. And people like Kim Kardashian, huge influencers, they do get fined, right? And some of them get into serious legal trouble, like when Kim Kardashian was hawking NFTs and cryptocurrency. But alas, The FTC has no teeth, and it is only a regulatory agency, a part of government, that creates no federal laws and only has guidelines and recommendations. And while they do give notices to those companies and corporations that might be deceptively advertising, those notices can go ignored. However, ignoring such notice can result in a fine up to $50,120 per violation. And that amount does get adjusted with inflation each year. However, that amount is miserably low for the amounts that these corporations are paying and raking in every year. Their advertisements alone, their advertising budgets are bigger than that. They're 10 times, 20 times bigger than that, especially a company as large as L'Oreal. I hate to agree with the who cares contingent, and I think it is useless and extremely cynical to simply ignore these attempts at fraud when they come up. However, the ways in which I have to agree are that the Federal Trade Commission is a joke that supports these businesses more than they ever bother fining them, or, which, as they claim is a possibility, imprisoning people for this. The only evidence that I've ever needed to know that the FTC is a complete joke is by claiming to regulate things like pyramid schemes, and claiming to regulate pyramid schemes and then doing absolutely nothing at all, and frankly, supporting them. Their existence is supported by several bills that allow them to work. For example, if they have buyback programs, even if the customers are mainly the people who are attempting to sell you these products that are never the reason a pyramid scheme exists, they are protected by the Federal Trade Commission. These businesses make enough money to influence government. That is corporatism. Our former Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, was a millionaire who made millions because of her billionaire husband, who was the founder of Amway, one of the largest and oldest pyramid schemes that we still have around today. In 1968, Ralph Nader put together a group of 7 law students, known as Raiders Naders, to work specifically on the topic of the FTC and whether or not they were truly effective as a regulatory agency. Their answer was no, it is ineffective, it is passive about its duties, not proactive about discovering violations, delays actions to an unreasonable extent, and has ineffective enforcement practices. If we just stop there, I found out about something called the National Advertising Division in the US, and that is a self-regulating agency made by advertisers who chose to form an alliance and kind of regulate each other on what is deceptive advertising. And you might find this familiar, but they can only make recommendations about deceptive advertising. But don't worry, because if the advertiser refuses to respond to the recommendation by the NAD, then the NAD can just report them to the FTC, and they get high priority with claims they send to the FTC. Because, this is dead serious, ex-employees of the FTC have found employment within the National Advertising Division. I think it benefits both groups to be wildly ineffective in regulating their own businesses, because that would be taking money out of their own pockets. The Nader report regarding the FTC says a lot of the things that we're seeing today, and one of those is that there is no law enforcement that actually enables consumer protection. That is the problem. Now, this report of his did have some impact in the moment, and the American Bar Association also launched an investigation into whether or not the FTC should be abolished. And that didn't happen. The FTC was still fine and dandy. However, by 1980, the attempts at expanding the FTC's regulatory agency as well as law enforcement of consumer protection was shut down pretty quick. I tried to figure out about how much Mikayla Nogueira would have been paid for the video that she posted about the telescopic lash lift mascara, and talent agencies have come forward to say that they charge for one of their influencers about 1 to 2 cents per video view. Now, if we look at how many views that video got, it's 60.4 million. With TikTok, if we're going to be conservative and say she was paid 1 cent per view, and then we multiply 60,400,000 by 0.01, we arrive at $608,000. But maybe $608,000 is way too much. Maybe they could not have anticipated that Mikayla would get 60.4 million views on that TikTok. So, if we take an average of some of her other review videos, I got down to about 10 million per review video. So if they were paying her on 10 million views, she would have made $100,000. So about half of that is the fine that they would have to pay for Mikayla's video. And I guarantee you she made more than that. So it's probably somewhere in the middle. But Mikayla's not their only influencer. Not just on TikTok. They had to pay much more than that just for their influencer budget. So their influencer budget alone was over $1 million, guaranteed. And their other advertisements that make up other parts of their budget, easily many, many more millions. And then you have to wonder, how much are they earning based on these advertisements? Their profits are insane. Losing $50,120 is nothing. And they will do it over and over again. But they don't even have to, because no one's charging them. The FTC isn't showing up at their door. The FTC doesn't care enough to even tell them that they shouldn't be doing that. Another aspect of this is that really it's not a crime or illegal if the only consequence is a fine, because that simply means that it's legal for rich people. And I know I've connected or attempted to connect a lot of different topics here, but I'm relating them all back to the same thing, corporatism, because the FTC is not the only regulatory agency that has been cut down by the corporations that have been pouring all their money into government. And they're able to do so more easily after the 2010 Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission decision, where the Supreme Court reversed many well-established campaign finance restrictions and enabled corporations and other outside groups to spend unlimited funds on election cycles. And I did say unlimited. They can spend as much as they want through super PACs. So it's by design that the FTC has no teeth and does not go after these advertisers and corporations. And just take a look at how much money these businesses have donated to super PACs. Approximately $2.9 billion from 2010 to 2018 on federal elections. I think that we have yet to define what is deceitful advertising for consumers, because for businesses, the way we've defined it is with extremely broad guidelines that benefit them more than it benefits us. This is where it was definitely helpful for Ralph Nader to be a lawyer, because bringing about suits, understanding previous rulings, and having the law under his belt really did help him come up with cogent arguments against the way that these corporations were acting. However, the corporatism has now become part of our government and inextricable from our legislation. And we've also seen slap lawsuits against people who speak out negatively about a brand or a corporation. And again, more legal and financial intimidation tactics to prevent someone from making more people aware of a wrongdoing. Or even just a complaint, right? Like, this product wasn't that good. I think the inevitable end goal of native advertising is to create platforms and generally an environment where you never know if what you're looking at is an advertisement. And there are a lot of studies about how when there are no disclosures on an ad, people will retain more information and will be more likely to sit there and look at it in the first place. So ad disclosures are kind of like a heavy label that advertisers don't want to use. They don't want to scream advertisement at you because you're just going to mute the TV, right? You're just going to turn it off. You're just going to use ad block. However, there are also studies saying that an ad disclosure can lead to more trust from the person receiving that ad, because they can now temper their expectations and feel that the advertiser was being transparent. Nobody wants to be lied to, I think, is the point here. And I'm sure a lot of content creators feel this frustration where maybe they can't get people to directly pay for their work. Maybe the Patreon route isn't for everyone. And on the free-to-use platform, they really do have to use sponsors, etc. I remember Allison Stoner getting flack for having BetterHelp as a sponsor for one of her podcast episodes. And anybody who's seen Allison Stoner's podcast knows that she's a very informed person, right? And she's well-researched. So it really was a bit of disillusionment from fans when they saw that she was being paid by BetterHelp. and BetterHelp, if anybody doesn't know about the controversy, they were basically just like having regular people respond to like the text messages you send on there instead of like therapists and actual doctors. Anyway, Allison Stoner came back with an episode talking about how it's difficult to survive giving your content to people unless someone pays for it. And sometimes people make mistakes, and sometimes people choose sponsors that aren't the best. And I totally agree with that. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying about Kathleen Lights with critical thinking, voting with your dollar. There are hard choices people have to make, because if they are in league with certain businesses, that will reflect badly on them. Nobody exists in a vacuum. It's really interesting and sometimes very sad how much of a double-edged sword this has become, the relationship between advertiser and ambassador or influencer or spokesperson, where a spokesperson may negatively affect a brand with their own bad behavior, but now a brand's bad behavior can negatively affect their spokespeople as well. I'm not sure how preventable something like this is, besides not accepting money from corporations and advertisers, but I do know that the amount of deregulation that has gone on these past few years has significantly contributed to the corporatism and the astroturfing and the lies and the deceitful advertising that we've seen muddying the waters and making things harder for people. But the reason why this whole video was full of several different concepts and topics and people, and not just about Ralph Nader, is really because he'll even tell you himself, it's not that you should make an idol of any one person that's doing the work, right? It's definitely not a political figure, but even an activist, right? It's not about making some one person out to be a hero or even, a villain. More like it's about doing the work. And when asked about how he felt about his personal legacy and if he felt that that legacy was tarnished by his 5 presidential campaigns, he responded saying that he doesn't care, that he'd put his reputation on the line again because these are the issues that he believes in. But he also said this. He said, "What is my personal legacy? What if when I die, they take out seatbelts out of cars?" And it's just really, good point. Yeah, if he was resting on his laurels about putting seatbelts and airbags in cars and giving us nutritional labels and vouchers for overbooked flights, blah, 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 he'd be pretty unhappy, right, with the people who are still against seatbelts, right? Or people fighting for all of these things to be removed, or for gutting the Environmental Protection Agency. And when he was asked how he felt about Trump gutting a lot of the things that he helped put in place, his response was, "If only I was the kind of person who cared." We know he does care, right? He spent his whole life caring. I mean, he's trying to say, I'm not making a big deal out of it, I'm just gonna keep on trucking. It's just funny, he's just gonna throw him a little diss. He's just oh, I don't care. In the end, I would recommend anybody to watch An Unreasonable Man, the documentary, or even just some of his lectures at universities, because he does talk about empowering young people, and that what he promotes is more skepticism, not cynicism. He has a podcast here on YouTube called The Ralph Nader Radio Hour. It's good. I sat down to listen to it, and I didn't think that I would listen to the whole hour, and I did. It was really interesting, and it's not just him. So I enjoy that he talks about many different issues, and he also bounces off of other people. It's not just all about him. And I think that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that good person, we should definitely learn about him, and we should definitely learn about the things that he's touched, but that we can be inspired and go forward without holding him to this high esteem or putting anybody on a pedestal. So, I mean, I might thank him again. I might say, "Thank you, Ralph. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Ralph Nader." I mean, whatever.